What's up, everybody? Thomas Kennedy back again, chilling here in the lobby of the shop. I've got another cool airbrush video planned for you. For any of you who are seriously trying to learn how to airbrush. Today I will be painting a realistic eagle on a t-shirt, and I'll be doing a product review. I bought a brand new airbrush, and it's different than the ones I normally use, but it has a purpose. I'm going to be painting at an event next week, and I needed something that could hold more paint, so I decided to purchase another siphon feed gun, and I chose the Iwata Neo. Seems to be a nice looking gun, reasonably priced at 60 bucks. It comes with this paint bottle, and it didn't come with a hose, and I had to buy the quick connect, but I already have a hose and a compressor. But if you're just starting out, by the end of the video I'll be able to tell you what I think about this gun. If it turns out it's a really good product, I mean, for 60 bucks that'll be a pretty good deal. And then you can purchase your paint, compressor, and hose and have probably less than 300 bucks in your whole setup and be able to start an airbrush business technically. So I have it loaded up with some Createx medium gray, and that's what the majority of the shirt will be done with. I'm not going to get into much color on it. I might do some yellow on the beak or something. I might do brown in the feathers, but I'm not sure. I'm just going to see how it goes. Not going to get super detailed, but just enough detail to make it look realistic. And I'll kind of walk you through that process. And like always, if you have not watched my first video where I walk you through the lines and dots, then you are not ready for this lesson. So I'm going to head back to the airbrush room and get the airbrush hooked up and get the stencil onto the shirt. Alright, got my blank shirt stretched out onto the shirt board, and I previously made a stencil, and I have that in one of my other videos showing you how to do that, how to make a shirt stencil and all that. It's in the how to airbrush a tiger on a shirt video. So I've got this all laid out how I want it. It's a good size. It's going to look good on there. And you can't see it in the video, but I have my reference hanging up over here. So once again, like in the previous video, I'm just going to hold my stencil up in place where I want it. You can spray some spray adhesive on the back of here and hold it in place if you need to, but this won't take very long, so I'm just going to hold it and just kind of do a test spray somewhere just to get the feel for it. This is a brand new airbrush, so it might take some getting used to. I'm just tracing through the stencil lines. Just kind of a light dusting of the medium gray, enough to leave a simple outline down on the shirt so I can do all the detail and everything just freehand. But if you're going to do the same design on several shirts, I recommend making a stencil like this, because freehanding something this detailed over and over takes a lot of time, slows down your money flow if you're trying to do it as a business. But it is a really good skill to have to be able to bust out something like this freehand in case you ever need to. And I can do that, but it does take way longer. And everybody knows time is money. When you're in business, you are in business to make money. Do what you love, but you still got to make some money. And you want to be really careful not to hold the airbrush too far away and spray too wide of a fan or spray pattern or whatever, because it could get overspray and it could leave like a line here and leave like the rectangle shape of the stencil. So just stay close to the stencil while you're spraying, and try to keep your airbrush as perpendicular to the surface as possible. You don't want to tilt it this way too much or this way, unless you're just in there, whipping out some details. But if you're just spraying a solid area, just keep the airbrush as perpendicular to the canvas or shirt as possible. Make sure I didn't miss any lines here. I think that's got it. And there you have it, a basic eagle outline to go off of. And just so y'all can see it, this is my reference photo. It's just a Google image, and I photoshopped it just enough to where I could see the contrast a little bit better, see the blacks better. So, and I think I am just going to stick with black and gray on this just to keep it simple for y'all, because when you get into color realism, it can get really, really tricky. So I'll just start out with black and gray for this. Make sure that tip's good and clean. And you just dive straight into the details. See how this Iwata Neo does with fine detail. So far it reminds me a lot of I think it's called Revolution. It was the first Iwata I ever bought. It feels about the same as that one so far, but I think it's quite a bit cheaper. Make sure you leave the little highlight for the eye. You gotta just pay attention to the detail. When you're doing realistic stuff, you just have to paint it however you see it in the photo, as close to that as possible. And for these feather details right here, I'm just doing the quick little lines, whipping them out like I showed you in the beginner video. Just slowly build this gray up. And then in the spots where you can't get it dark enough, that's where you'll just go in and add the black. slowly come to life. You just gotta see where your details need to go. Anywhere in the photo that is white, just leave the space negative. Don't shade in there. Just paint it how you see it. And kind of like I did in the tiger video, I'm not going for photorealism. I'm just going for realism, just kind of a basic realism, enough detail to make it look real, but I'm not necessarily concerned about making it look just like a photo. If you can do that, that is awesome. But in this case, I'm going to be doing several t-shirts possibly with this same design, so I need to be able to bust these out pretty quick. If you have an airbrush tent or booth somewhere, you will soon realize people will like to watch you airbrush. So have your easel set up to where customers can stand there and watch you paint. It's kind of just one of those things that's almost kind of hypnotizing. They just like to watch it. And so if you can bust out a shirt like this while the customer is watching, then that's just way better for business. And they'll just tell all their friends, man, this dude just painted this awesome shirt. Or a girl, this person just painted this awesome shirt while I was standing there watching. It's so cool. And that's why you need to practice. The more you practice, the quicker and easier you can bust this stuff out. And if you can stand there and just talk to your customer and cut up with them or whatever, while you're busting out a pretty realistic painting on their shirt, I mean, that says a whole lot for your skill level, how much work you put into your skill, and it goes a long way. But it takes a long time to get to that point. So I'm just whipping these little lines out, just looking at my reference photo up there, starting out light, and then take a step back, look at it, build it up slowly where you need to build it up. And so far it's already looking pretty cool. And so far I'm really impressed with the Iwata Neo. It does pretty well for even the fine details. I don't think it's quite as fine. I can't get quite as fine of a line as I do for like the eclipses, the gravity feed ones like I normally use. But since I'm going to be painting a bunch of t-shirts, I can throw the paint bottle on here and have one for water, and I could use this just for my white paint, for example. Like that's probably the color I'm going to use most for doing my body paint where I'm going to be painting at. So I can load this up with white and use this just for white, and then I can use my other airbrushes a different color in each one. And I also have an Iwata Revolution siphon feed, so I may get that all set up and just have an airbrush for black, an airbrush for white, and then just use my gravity feed ones for different colors, the most common colors. Now somebody who's been having a t-shirt booth or body paint booth for longer, they might have invested more in their setup so far, and it would be best to have an airbrush for every single color you use. And as good as this is going so far, eventually I might just buy enough of these and have one setup for every color I use at my airbrush tent, and that would make the process way quicker. So whatever kind of airbrush setup you're doing, if you're setting up a store in a mall or an airbrush tent at an event like I'm going to, just think about that. What are you going to be painting most? What colors do you use most? Do you use a lot of paint at a time? And if so, this might be a better route, because these bottles hold way more than what the little gravity feed ones do. And then the gravity feed ones might be better for something that you can put more time into, like murals, painting cars, bikes, and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. Whatever kind of airbrush business you want to have, just get the equipment that is going to be best for you starting out. And then if you start out with a t-shirt booth and then you decide you want to get into more technical stuff like painting cars and bikes, then all you have to do is just do some research, figure out what kind of airbrushes would be better and what kind of paint would be used. It's a whole other process, way more time involved, but way more profit also. So a whole different market. But whatever you want to put into airbrushing, you can get out of it. If you want to make a full-time career out of it, then the only thing holding you back is how much time and effort you put into it, how much research you do, how much you practice. I've done a little bit of everything. I've painted cars, bikes, shirts, helmets, body paint, hats, and it's all cool, but I have narrowed it down to where I paint certain things most of the time. So just figure out what you like painting the most and just go for it. Alright, it's slowly coming to life. I'm going to stop the video, knock out a little bit more detail with the gray, and then we'll pick back up when I get closer to start using the black. Alright, real quick, I decided I would show you guys how to clean the airbrush out real quick, just in between color changes. This is not how you thoroughly clean your airbrush. This is just to go from one color to the next and clean the airbrush out enough to where you can go to another color and your other color won't be contaminated with the previous color. So I have a separate bottle just for water, and if you're using different kinds of paints, you'll need to use thinner or reducer, but Createx, I can just run water through there and it does fine. So once you take the paint bottle off, it's still going to be spraying some of the gray. So what I'm going to do is just put the water bottle on. Well, this one, you might have to twist it sideways to get it to fit or something. This one doesn't want to fit on here. This one is actually, it fits on my Revolution. So since it doesn't fit, this is just, I think back in the day, somebody called it just milking it. I don't even know where that term came from, but you can just hold the air down and it will siphon the water out without it even being all the way up in there. So just kind of do that, let some water run through it. And as soon as the water is spraying completely clear, then you know you got all the previous color out. I'm going from gray to black, so really I don't even have to do that, but I just wanted to show you, if you go from a darker color to a lighter color with this kind of airbrush setup, you do need to run water through it. And that is the way you need to run water through it, and just clean it out real quick, just enough to not contaminate your next color. But I will do another video at some point to show you how to break down each kind of airbrush, break it completely down, and clean it thoroughly, which you need to do after either if you bust out a few shirts, or like in my case, I'm going to work at a bike rally for most of a week. And after that week, I will need to break all my airbrushes down and clean them thoroughly. If not, paint will dry up and clog your tip up, and it stays in all these little crevices throughout here, and it will cause problems over time, and your airbrush will not run as smoothly. And when you're trying to do these fine details and whip out these small lines, you definitely want your airbrush to be running perfectly, flowing good. If it's not, then you know something's up. And then once you learn how to take it apart and clean it thoroughly, from time to time, you might have to stop and break it down in between a project or in the middle of a project, just so you can get it to start working the way you need it to. Or in my case, sometimes I have enough airbrushes to where I can just be like, all right, set this one off to the side, it needs a thorough cleaning, and then jump to another one. But if you can thoroughly clean your airbrushes every time you use them, that would be ideal. So, make sure it's running clear, and it's good to go. Let me get some black loaded. All right, back in black. Back with some black. Opaque black, Createx. Time to go in here, and I think I'll bust out the detail in the face first. So, if you're doing a black and white photo like this, you can do like I did, get in Photoshop, bump up the contrast. You can see the black's a lot better, and the white's a lot better too. So you can do that, but if not, you can just print it out. If you don't have Photoshop or know how to use it and everything, I recommend learning to use it. But if you don't have it, just print out your photo, and anywhere you see the black, just go in there and lay down the black. And you can get as crazy as you want with these little details in here. I mean, detail's always good, but like I said, keep in mind what your intentions are. Are you trying to do several shirts with the same design to make the most amount of profit that day, or are you trying to create like a straight up masterpiece, you know? So just think about that, and I think I will just tape it here so I can kind of point out some things while I'm working. So far, the Neo is doing pretty well for a $60 airbrush. I am impressed. Alright, so until you get really comfortable with small detail, I recommend when you first go in with your black, starting out in an easier area such as this, where it's not as tight of an area and you don't have to be as careful, kind of get the feel, and then move into areas like this where it's like really tedious. So maybe just start out with the nostril hole or whatever it's called on an eagle. Bust that out. Just that little bit of black really stands out. So use the gray to create the light tones and mid tones, and then just come in here with the black and slowly start bringing it to life. getting in there and testing out the small line work. See what this machine, or I'm thinking about tattoos. Been tattooing all day. See what this, I guess it is a machine. See what this airbrush gun can do. Tattoo machines are machines, not guns, and then this is actually a gun. So, I'm getting mixed up. So for anybody that says, I don't have time to airbrush, I don't have time to draw. I tattooed all day. And it is 12:35 after midnight. And I'm up here getting in my practice, sharing some knowledge with y'all. So there's always time. You might have to just stay up all night, which I do a lot if I want to practice art. So don't make excuses. Get off TikTok and bust out your airbrush. Bust out a nice eagle shirt and then do a TikTok dance to celebrate. That would work too. Now I'm going to get in here and do some finer details around this beak. And I got to say that I got it as fine as possible right there. It did create just as fine of a line, probably as the eclipses I used. Now it was a little tougher, but I think I can do almost anything with this one that I do with the eclipses. It is a little tougher to get the fine detail, but I can do it. Anybody who's watching these videos that wants to learn to airbrush and hasn't got their equipment yet, $60 comes with the bottle. Then you just buy a $30 hose and $100 on the air compressor. So what is that? 60, 30, 90, 100, $200. And then your paint. So about $250. $250, you'll be good to go. Even buy a couple of t-shirts with that included probably. So what other business can you start for under $300? Especially if you're already a good artist. If you're already able to draw this on this kind of level, just learn the airbrush and post some crap on Facebook. Hey, now just do a shirt like this, post that, and say, hey, taking airbrush t-shirt orders. I guarantee you, if you can bust out some stuff like that, you will be as busy as you want to be. And like I said, spend $300 or less, and you can do a few shirts like this and have your money back. And then you could bust out a few of these a day, be rolling a few $100 every day if you want to. This is kind of like my side hustle and just another hobby and a way for me to practice my art fairly quickly if I want to learn something new before I use it in my tattoo art. I can bust out some stuff with airbrush fairly quick, learn a couple of new art techniques, and then apply it to my tattoos and make my tattoo work even better and have more demand for it. And if you're already putting out good work and you learn a new technique, it makes your customers happy. They're happy to show off their work for you. All you got to do is put in the effort, put in the practice, get good, and you're in business. And then you just got to maintain it. Keep putting in work. Consistency is the key. Like I said in my other video, I've been airbrushing for 15 years. And it took me a few years to get good, but I did learn. I had like one person kind of coach me through starting out, and then magazines, and once YouTube got popular and I got a computer and all that stuff, YouTube videos, or watching other airbrush artists at like tourist spots and stuff like that. If you get into this, everywhere you go where there's an airbrush booth, you're going to want to just stand there and critique their work, learn a couple of new techniques if you can. And you never stop learning. I mean, I'm pretty decent at airbrushing, but there's people out there, they just blow my stuff away. And I have a lot going on business-wise, so I just take time once in a while to learn something new. I set aside me time to learn a new skill, new technique or something, and I slowly step it up. But if I was focusing on airbrushing 100%, I mean, I could just take it as far as I want to go with it. There's people out there that know so much about it, and they've just completely dedicated themselves to it. But I am mainly a tattoo artist, so like I said, this is a side hustle. And if you already have a full-time job and you're just trying to get out of that kind of work, this is perfect. Just spend your $300, get your business started, and just take it from there. Learn a few basic business skills. And then eventually, if you put enough effort into it, you might be making more money painting shirts than you're making at your job. And you might just be like, I'm out. You could travel, set up at different events all over if you wanted to. I personally just like to do a limited number of events as of right now. And like I mentioned, I will be doing an event coming up, so I plan on doing a couple of different cool videos to share with everybody. We'll probably do some hat videos, maybe some body paint videos, if I have a model who doesn't mind. So if I can pull that off, I'll bring it at you. Hats are cool. If you do an airbrush booth, hats are fairly inexpensive. If you get a bunch of them, they're quick and easy to paint once you get the hang of it. So it's a good money maker. Now I'm just kind of making some little dots around this eye to create these little details. Shading that eye, just darken it up where it needs it. Just, like I said, realism, draw what you see, paint what you see. Don't start using your imagination in here if you're trying to make it look real like the photo. If you have a style that is not realistic and that's, you're not going for realism, then do what you want. But if you want it to look real, do it like the photo. Alright, so I got the black in there, and I will use some opaque white I left a little negative space right there, and I will go in there with the opaque white and fill in that spot, and then do a couple of little fine lines around here and some little white dots around this area, and that will create all these little cool details in here. And there's a bunch of them in here. Some of them are just little tiny lines. Some of them are just little dots. Now this is where I'm noticing the difference between this and my Eclipse. When you're doing a bunch of small dots and lines, it's not as efficient. It seems to clog and get tip build up a little bit more. I'm going to adjust my pressure and see if it makes a difference. But on the Eclipse, you can be on and off that trigger a lot more without those little hiccups. But I up the pressure and it seems to help a little bit. But do not go above 55 psi. I think I'm at 45 or 50 right now. The guy who first started teaching me a little bit about airbrush and got me interested in it, he had a cool way of making you remember what psi to not go over. If you are into old rock and roll, Sammy Hagar, he would always say, I can't drive 55. So don't go over 55. Don't get a speeding ticket and don't blow out your airbrush. I can't drive 55. And I can't sing, that's why I paint. I'll throw in the entertainment part of this for free. So, just keep on with the black. There's even a little bit over here, so just capture that. It's not completely solid. Pay attention to where the black is completely solid and where it's more like a really, really deep gray. You can use the black and just shade with the black and it'll just create more of a dark gray instead of solid black. Kind of like something like that. And like I said, I'm driving about 45 to 50 psi. And it seems to be working pretty well at that pressure. Sometimes these siphon feed guns, now that I think about it, when I used to use them a lot, it does seem like you have to run the PSI a little bit higher because it does have to suck that paint up through there. The gravity feed ones, it just runs off in there. So you can run those usually 35, maybe 40. And this fine detail is a little difficult sometimes with this one, but it does pull it off. And for t-shirt quality, especially something like this with kind of a looser approach to the detail, it's not that big a deal. So I'm still saying it's a good deal. $60, you can't beat it. Now, I don't know if I would want to use this airbrush all the time on really detailed stuff. Maybe not anything more detailed than this. I wouldn't want to do a whole lot with it. But for a beginner, definitely get it. Alright, and then some of that black does come up in there. And just keep in mind, you can always go darker later on if you need to. So if you're not 100% sure, don't go all the way black in there. Just shade it kind of dark and then leave that spot alone for a minute. Step away, get a good look at it. And add a little black right there. Alright, now I'm going to add some of this detail. It's not really solid black, but just some darker lines in here. And now this part is black, so I will go in here right up under that beak. That beak fades out right there. And then it just fades into black, so fade to black. So come in here and do some little detail here. And this is just little dots and lines, so make sure you practice those as mentioned in the first video I did. Dots and lines, dots and lines. If that airbrush starts spitting on you, it could mean paint's low or need to clean the tip. So just be on the lookout for that. Just pay attention to how the airbrush works. If it starts not flowing as well, then that means you got some kind of problem. So just stop, evaluate it, see what it is. It may just need more paint. Alright, I'm going to leave this area alone for a minute just to make sure I don't do too much black. It's easy to go too dark in there. Let's see, I'll fade that out really quick. I just noticed that needs to be a smoother gradient. So, got that. Now, I'm going to go ahead and go down here to this area. And I'm just going to stick to the reference. Mostly black. Leave a little white highlight at the tips and sides, just wherever it's at on the photo. Go ahead and get that out of my way. Alright, so I'll just start out over here where most of the black is, and it's just going to fade up into the white feathers. And this is actually just solid black here in the middle. So just do it this way. And you can fill in solid areas, different techniques. Sometimes I might just kind of do this, depending on what kind of area I'm working in. Fade that up. Just fade it up into the white. And over here is pretty much solid black, so. And just whip that out up there to fade that in. And make sure you keep your airbrush as perpendicular to that as possible. And my reference is pretty much a black background, but I don't want to do that much black back there, so I might get crazy and do an American flag on there later on or something, or at the event I might do something like that. America! And then, so I'm just going to kind of fade that out, not get too carried away with the black, and then leave the little negative spaces for the highlights. And when you're doing a bigger area, you can pull your airbrush out a little bit farther. And for the tighter areas, for example, like the little detail around here, get closer, less trigger, finer details. And I'll probably repeat that like in every video I do. But if you follow me through every video as you learn, it'll just be programmed into your subconscious mind. And my annoying monotone voice will be right there to remind you when you're working. Closer for fine detail, farther away for bigger areas. Close for those little fine details and farther away for the bigger areas. Fine detail, get up close. Farther away, fade that out, bigger area. And I might do something cool at the bottom, I don't know. We'll see. But for now, fade it out. And also, while I'm thinking about it, when I'm spraying this much black in a big area, there could be overspray falling down. So I'm gonna unfold that just to prevent black from building up down here, and then when they put their shirt on, they got like a big weird black spot right here. So keep that in mind. Be conscious of your work area. Step back, check out the progress. And it's looking pretty good. In my reference photo, it's blacked out over here pretty much, which is good. I tell everybody, just like people that taught me with art, tattoo art and everything, don't be scared of the black. In a high contrast image like this, you have to do the black. I know sometimes it's like, man, I don't want to do that big of a black area. Well, some photos, well taken, high contrast, photography, I mean, it needs that black. And even if it's not a black and gray or black and white photo, for example, this was a color photo when I first saved it, but I converted it to black and white. But even if I was doing this in color, and this is brown, that's dark brown, and over here it would still be black. So just keep that in mind. Don't be scared of the black. Don't be scared of the black. If I was good at singing, I'd probably be a rock star instead of a starving artist, but it works for now. Don't fear the black. See how these feathers go? And as I get farther over that way, the feathers are lighter and they have a little bit more detail to them. So I might simplify some of the detail, like I said earlier, to make it a quicker process. It'll still look realistic, but I can still bust out several and make good profit. Fade it up into there, get close, fine details, and right here, some of these feathers, they have like these small little black lines fading in like that. So you can do some of those. And let's see, this, it's easy to get lost in the detail. So just I just literally do this, compare it to the photo, and right here is black fading down. I'm literally just whipping out some black lines like I did on the palm trees and cattails in the airbrushing a t-shirt for beginners video, I believe it was called. So check that one out if you're not up to this level yet, and just practice your whipping your little lines out making palm trees. Palm trees are real simple, but it's a cool design you can do, and that technique carries over into all this stuff. I mean, all these little lines I'm whipping out are pretty much the same thing I do on those palm trees. Now, is that how everybody does them? I don't know, but I learned most of the stuff I know airbrushing from watching videos, looking at magazines, and then just practicing on poster board. And since I didn't have anybody there personally teaching me, I kind of just developed my own little way of doing some of the techniques. So I might not do it just like everybody else, but the end result is what matters. And as artists, you'll figure out ways that are easier for you to do certain things, and that's perfectly fine. If you're busting out some awesome art, I don't care if you do it a little bit different than how I do. All right, I'm gonna finish up this black, and then I'll come back with, I'm gonna decide whether I want to do background or just go straight to white highlights, call it done. Actually, I got a cool idea for just a light background and maybe something else, we'll see. All right, I'm gonna brainstorm for a minute, get some black done, and then we will be back. All right. Dang, I broke my step. Just built it and already broke it. Anyway, I got all the black in down here, and I always see stuff that I missed, but I need to round that out a little bit. All right. And once again, I see something I missed, but a good artist is never 100% satisfied, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, as far as background, I'm just gonna keep it simple. I'm gonna stick with the black, but as you can see, I faded it out to a soft gradient. So for now, just for this video, I think I will just kind of fade that out and just leave this at just like a portrait design. Just leave it at that. It looks good. I'm just gonna lightly dust around it, create just a little bit of background. Step away from it. And maybe just a little bit more. The reference photo is solid black behind it, but I don't want to go that dark. I don't think it really needs to be solid black. Just kind of a light dusting. And that shows you what all you can do with just black. Like I could do this whole painting with black and it would still look pretty good. I wouldn't be able to get those real light tones. But you can pull off a whole lot with just black. So that's why I say just starting out, just grab a Neo, an Iwata Neo, comes with the paint bottle, get you a hose, a compressor, and just a bottle of black. Opaque black Createx. Some t-shirts. I like the Next Level brand. They're nice and soft. They hold up good. So starting out, just do some black. That's all you really need. You can do light tones with it, or you can go all out and get these real solid black areas down here. Alright, so since I'm just going to leave that as is with just a light background, I'll go ahead and get loaded up with some white highlights, get loaded up with some white paint for some white highlights, and get that knocked out. So I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back, and me and Mr. Eagle here had a conversation, and he said, give the people what they need. And I said, Mr. Eagle, what's that? He said, something badass. He said, this shirt needs some fire. Some fire. So, we're about to add some freehand flames. I can't tell Mr. Eagle no. He is our great nation's symbol. He teaches us a great lesson. Be like an eagle. When you start reaching great heights in your art career, the little birds try to attack you. The storm tries to attack you and hold you down. And you could weather the storm, because that's what we do. We're tough. But Mr. Eagle said, just fly above the storm. Leave the little birds down here with all their negativity. just fly like an eagle up over their storm. And I said, Mr. Eagle, that's a very good point. It's time to fly high and do some badass flames on a badass eagle t-shirt. So, it's time to unleash the inner redneck and paint some far. Some far. Now, I've drawn flames all my life. I got into like hot rod cars when I was young. I would see the cool paint jobs with the flames going down the sides. So I would just start drawing hot rod flames as a kid. And I got pretty good at it. And then as I started airbrushing, I started looking into Mike LaValle, who unfortunately recently passed away. But he always did like some of the most badass realistic flames you could ever imagine. So I tried to get on his level with those. I never quite got on his level, but I got pretty good. So I do my freehand flames kind of like a mixture between hot rod flames and realistic flames. They're just little S curved lines, I guess you could say. And so I'm going to go ahead and do them on here. Mr. Eagle said I need to paint some fire. So you're in luck. You get to learn how to paint some freehand flames my way in this video too. So it's a bonus. Now, I'm just going to do this where the fire goes over towards this shoulder just because it's just kind of like talking to me, and it's saying his head's kind of going in this way. So maybe just have the fire just going that way behind him. I think that would look best. So first I'm just going to kind of do some squiggly lines just to kind of mark my flow. And a lot of airbrush shirts, they just put a design right here in the middle. And there's nothing wrong with that. But step it up, do a cool eagle, do some badass flames, and just have it coming over onto the shoulder some. It will take an extra step to heat press it, but sometimes you just got to go the extra mile, make it extra badass, put a big old smile on your customer's face, and you go the extra mile, make their shirt even more badass. Of course, ask them first, say, you know, oh, if they say, I like that eagle shirt up there, and say, well, what are you into? And if their motorcycle has flames on it, say, you want me to put some flames on there for you? No extra charge. And then it takes you like 5 minutes to paint some awesome flames on there. They might pay you extra for the shirt. You never know. Just plus you get in practice painting a little extra. Always go the extra mile if they want you to. If they say, I just want the eagle, just do the eagle. But if they're giving you creative, artistic freedom, just ask them, you like flames? Or if they're wearing something that has flames on it, or if their motorcycle or car has flames on it, they obviously do. So just kind of pay attention to things like that. And the cooler you can make your art, I mean, it gets you more excited. It makes them like it more, except for some people out there you just can't please. Don't worry about those people. Just, you know, do the best you can on it. If they don't like it, whatever. You know, you tried. So what I'm doing here, pretty much, I've done this for so long, I can just wing it and it'll still look good. I mean, I can paint this crap with my left hand if I want to. Just make it flow up that way. I mean, I've painted flames for so long. So you just have to practice on some poster board and look up different styles of flames. Find some flames you like and just practice replicating those on poster board over and over. And make them flow different ways, use different colors, And once you really get the hang of it, I mean, it's basically just squiggly lines. You know, I'm doing some farther away from the shirt, making them lighter, and then clean that tip. And then go in there and do some a little bit closer. See how that stands out more? And just get into it. Just let your hand flow. And if you're a long-time artist, you just kind of know when you get in your flow. Once you get in there and focus, it takes, you know, different amounts of time for different people, but you get in there and stay focused for a few minutes or 30 minutes, however long it takes you. Then you get in your flow, and that's, you know, you just start moving your hand and cool flames come out. But that's where that practice comes in. You spend hours and hours, you end up spending thousands of hours drawing and painting the same things over and over. I mean, it gets to where you can chit chat with your customers, make a video, and talk while you work. And it just helps out. You got to put in that work, get those hours in, and step away and just check it out. And so far, it's looking pretty cool. Some of it looks more like smoke than flames, so I might kind of just add a little bit of attitude to some of them. More squiggly kind of, I guess. And then kind of add these little guys here. Just kind of like if you've ever stared at a campfire, you know, some of those little tiny coals burn up and the little flames just kind of break off at the end. I don't know the correct terminology for all that stuff, but that's how you paint fire. And you can get in there and add more detail to some spots like that. But keep in mind, doing backgrounds, just be careful. Try to think about, does it need a dark background? Does it need a light background? What else are you trying to do with it? Are you going to add a name? If you're going to add a name, then you need to do light gray that doesn't take away from the name. If you're doing color, do a bright light color behind the name. Really start looking into design theory, color theory. The more you know about all that stuff, the better art you can make. Or you might just be one of those people who just naturally knows what looks good, and you can just bust out some stuff, just winging it. I can do that sometimes, but not all the time. I'm not the most talented artist, but I've put in a lot of hours with what talent I have. Looking pretty cool. I might do a little bit more right here maybe. Just balance it out. Do what you think looks good. And if you're not sure, I mean, get some critiques. Ask your friends and family, like, what do you think about this shirt? Or this painting, whatever. And then, or post it on your Facebook. And more than likely you have at least one or two people on there who's going to tell you, that looks like crap, if it looks like crap. If it looks cool, they're going to be like, dude, that's badass, that's awesome, I want one. Or they might say, man, that beak looks jacked up, I don't know about it. Then guess what? Go draw another eagle. Get better at it. You don't want your art to look bad if you're trying to sell it. You get out what you put in. Alright, since this is light, I think I'm going to go in here and kind of add like a whole nother layer. Flames you can layer, especially if you're doing more along the loose freehand, somewhat realistic. Add another layer of them right up under here on top of that lighter stuff. And you can even add some that kind of resemble the hot rod kind a little bit better, I guess. America! America! Y'all know the rest. Kind of just wing it. Just let it flow. Paint some fire. Instead of burning down a building, just paint some fire, you know? Don't go start a fire, just paint a fire. Can't we all just get along? I guess not. While y'all out there raising hell, I'm gonna be in here painting. Painting a cool eagle. Alright, now I'm getting closer, but I'm pulling the trigger back more so that it doesn't create that fine line. Just kind of making like a fuzzier looking line, I guess you would say. Just mix it up. I guess you would call that dynamics, using like different line weights or different line consistencies or something like that. Whatever it's called, it works and it looks cool. Mix it up. Just mixing it up a little bit. Alright, let me step back and see what I got. I don't want to overdo it. Alright, one more flame here, just kind of lighter. And sometimes it's hard to leave it alone, but you just gotta feel it. When it talks to you and Mr. Eagle says, that's good, then you just gotta paint your last little bit and step away. Alright, now that you learned how to do some cool freehand flames because Mr. Eagle told me to show you, now I will load some white and do highlights. Alright, back again. This time got some white, opaque white loaded up. Make sure it's all spraying good. Alright, see how this Neo does for white highlights. Seems to be spraying pretty well. Alright, I'll just start out with something pretty easy. Like I said, when you are using a new airbrush or just kind of getting warmed up, getting in your flow, and you need to do some detailed stuff, just start out on an area that is a little bit simpler, kind of like the highlight of that nose. That really brings out the nose, or the nose, I guess it's a beak, whatever, but it gives it that highlight and gives it that 3D effect on Mr. Eagle's nose. And so that's kind of like a soft highlight. That kind of just gives it that effect that it's got some roundness to it or whatever. And then you can go in closer and add that more hard highlight, I guess you would call it. Like the light's hitting it a little bit harder. And then kind of just soften out around it. And then on the reference photo, it's got some highlights like right around here. So now that I kind of got the feel for the airbrush, get my tip clean. Now I'll just run a little highlight up through here. And it may be hard to see from the camera. I'll zoom in at the end and get a good close-up view of everything. And there's some highlight areas here around the nostril, or air hole, eagle air hole, whatever it is. Whatever it is, Mr. Eagle, whatever it is. All right, and there's another highlight. Really, I guess there's kind of a light, soft highlight down here. So kind of bring that out, and it actually, there we go. It kind of gets a little bit more crispy line work on the edge of that beak right there. And run a little highlight up around here. Because really, now I look at it, I went a little too dark up there. So the good thing about opaque white, you can go back and highlight it, lighten it up. So that works out. And there's highlights, I don't know if y'all can see the reference photo, but there's highlights on this beak area here. So once again, just paint what you see. If there's black there, put black there. If there's white there, leave the white of the shirt showing. If it's highlight, put some white highlights in there. Paint it like you see it. That's all we can do. Paint it like we see it. All right, get all these little white line highlights in there. Make sure that tip's clean. When you're on and off the trigger a lot, doing line details and highlights and stuff like that, it will get built up more frequently. Look at it, do a few little lines there, whipping them out. Little palm tree lines or whatever you want to call them. Create that little effect, and then add these little white highlights in here. And you can do just a few little highlight tricks on these eyes and around eyes on these animal portraits like this, and it really adds that extra level of detail to it. And I mean, if you can draw and paint or tattoo, whatever art you're doing, and you can get those eyes nice and like that wet look almost, and make them look as real as possible. I mean, it gets a lot of attention, and you can get a lot of business off of that. When you can pull off some nice detail, it definitely helps your business. And even if you're doing more stylized work and you're not necessarily interested in this realistic stuff, you can do stylized art and give it realistic features just using the highlights and little details here and there, and that creates a cool effect too. I might do some samples of that later on. Who knows? I might end up doing a bunch of videos and showing y'all all kinds of stuff. Get that highlight right there in the pupil. step away and check it out. Looks pretty sharp, Mr. Eagle. Looks pretty sharp. Get these little white feathers that look almost like little white hairs. Get those in there, get those detailed. And you can get really carried away with this stuff because there's so many white highlights on that photo. But just be careful about overdoing it because it can take away from the realistic effect. I try to just pick the main areas that I want to stand out the most. Like definitely eye and beak, because the eyes, most eyes have kind of that like wet, moist look to it, and the beak's kind of like a hard surface, so when the light hits it, it needs that good highlight. So pay attention to that stuff. These are technically kind of like highlights, but I'm just going to let the negative space I left be those highlights. I don't really need to add any oomph or pop to those, whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to focus on this little area because that's what's going to catch your eye. When you see this shirt, it's like, boom, that eagle's just got that, that just don't mess with me kind of look in its eye. Because eagles are pretty tough. They can swoop down and snatch up all kinds of stuff. They got sharp claws. Sharp claws. Bust out a few more little highlights in this area. Man, that looks nice. That looks real nice. That looks nice. Oh man. America. America. And I think I'll bring out a highlight right here just because there's a lot of white hair looking feathers right there. And man, when you really get the hang of whipping these little lines out like that, and you kind of build up layers of it, it really looks right cool. Looks pretty cool. Looking pretty cool. What y'all doing? Painting eagles? That dude's, they got that dude stuck in my damn head. What are y'all doing? TikToking? Y'all TikToking? I promise I'll start making my videos better. They're probably a little boring, but at least you're learning some cool airbrush skills. Alright, see how that looks. And I might bump up this white highlight right here just a little bit. And then step away. And maybe even here. Just stay in this area. And it's looking pretty decent, but I can get carried away in details, so just a little bit more, just a little bit. And maybe step some of these up just a little bit. And fade this out just a little. And you can just paint to your level of satisfaction with it. I could stay on this all night and get real picky about little details, but there's no need because I've already spent probably a decent amount of time on this. So starting out, it'll take a little while to do something even with this much detail. But once you do the same design over and over, you'll find little tricks and techniques of how you can get faster and do things easier. And next thing you know, you'll be able to bust something like this out in like 15, 20 minutes, maybe tops. I mean, once I get the stencil on there and knock one or two out, if I'm at the bike rally I work at and people start ordering them, I mean, the first day, if I do a few of those, I'll be able to bust those out 10 or 15 minutes. And I mean, that really helps. If you're setting up an airbrush booth, I mean, you don't want to have to take an hour on a shirt like this, and you're not going to be real profitable. But starting out, I mean, if you're not super busy and you get one order like this, I mean, then you do have time to do that. But it's better to just work on this stuff before you get an actual tin or something set up. Get to where you're up to speed, and then maybe try to get you an airbrush tin or something. And that will really help you out. Beach scenes, eagles, tigers, unicorns, any kind of simple designs. I mean, it's cool. Just, you can make some stencils. Some of the real simple stuff you can just freehand. If it only takes a few minutes to knock out freehand every time, and you can get them really close, almost identical. There's nothing wrong with that. But the more you practice, the better you'll get. You can't skip the work. You can't skip putting in all the hours. There's no way around it. Alright, I think I'm going to call this done, and I will grab the phone and get a close-up view of it, let y'all check out all the cool details in there and stuff. Alright, I will let y'all get a close-up view of the shirt. Let me flip my camera around if I even know how to do that. Alright, let y'all get a good close-up. See where the highlights are. And it's literally just like lines, dots, scribbles. You just got to put them in the right place. Study your reference. You know, that was the reference I went off of. And like I said earlier, I wasn't trying to make it photorealistic. But anybody would agree that's a fairly realistic eagle. I mean, that's plenty of detail. Plenty realistic for an airbrush t-shirt. I mean, I'm pretty sure any customer who wants an airbrushed eagle on their t-shirt would be happy with that. So that's plenty of detail. You can bust those out at a good pace once you get the hang of it, and that eagle can make you some good money. And if you set up an airbrush tent somewhere or in a mall somewhere and you're in the right place where people like eagles and all that stuff, I mean, you probably paint so many of these you end up hating them. I mean, paint hundreds of them. So just, once again, just see how I did the little details. See how I did the flames. Just some thin lines that are kind of crisp. Some of them, for example, these, they're just softer lines. Airbrush farther from the shirt. And these small lines, the airbrush is just closer to the shirt. Pulled back on the trigger less. Release less paint. Here I'm releasing more paint and backing up from the shirt a little bit. And on all these little details, you get right up on there and get close, and you just pull the trigger back slowly, little by little, until you get the highlight looking how you want it. Or if you're doing a thin line like this one, See how thin that is? And the Iwata Neo is not bad. It's definitely one of the best beginner airbrushes out there, so I would highly recommend that. All that was done with the Iwata Neo and Createx paint, black, gray, and white. All right, so now you know how to paint a realistic eagle on a t-shirt. I recommend practicing that over and over. Go through my videos, start from the beginning, learn the dots and lines that you need to get started, get used to the trigger, get all your equipment, practice all that stuff. Then do like a airbrush beach scene with the palm trees and the sky and ocean. That's a really good beginner shirt. Do some of those, get the hang of the trigger, and then maybe jump up to a tiger, eagle. It'll take time. It'll take a lot of time, actually. I mean, you might be airbrushing for a year or 2 years before you get to where you can just pull off one of these, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It might take even longer than that. It took me longer to get to where I could paint something even this realistic. So just be patient, be consistent. Airbrush, you might be all excited at first and paint so much that you burn yourself out. You don't want to do that. It's easy to be excited at first. That's fine. Paint as much as you want to for a week or two, and then just kind of slow down and just paint 2 or 3 nights a week or something, and just be consistent. Pick one thing to work on. Work on that, for 2 or 3 weeks if you have to, and get the hang of it. Work on the dots for a week or two if you have to, dots and lines. Then do beach scenes, palm trees, practice all that stuff for a couple weeks. And you can do poster boards, so you don't have to spend so much money on shirts at first. Just do poster board till you get the hang of it, and then try to knock out a shirt just for a gift for somebody or something like that. And then if you get to where you're busting out pretty good, you can make a little money, buy some more supplies, different colored paints and all that stuff. And then you get the hang of the beach scenes. If you want to keep doing real colorful, cartoony looking stuff, that's fine. Start looking up different design ideas just on Google or something like that, or order an Airbrush DVD or something like that. Airbrush Action magazine. You can still get on their site, I think, and still order magazines from them, and they have good lessons in there. I used to learn a lot of stuff out of there. I don't think they put out very many issues anymore, if any, but you can order some of the older ones. Any of that stuff is good for learning. And if you want to get into the more realistic stuff, which I like a lot and it's really cool, just keep practicing all these techniques. Get some medium gray, start building it up. Add the black, add the white highlights. That's probably as simple as you can get almost for doing something pretty realistic. So get the hang of that and just keep practicing. And I'll post another video soon. I might do a couple at the bike rally I'm working at. I might do a body paint video. I might do a hat video. And in the next couple of weeks, I'll get those posted. And I'll do... If you want some other kind of video, just leave me some comments. Give me some ideas of stuff you'd like to learn how to paint, and I'll make some videos. But main thing, keep practicing. Just stay consistent. At least paint something every single week. At least a couple nights a week. Just stay consistent. And you will get better over time. Consistency is the key. Just keep pushing forward. And with all the crap going on in the world is getting crazy. I mean, we just have to try to stay calm, work on ourselves, treat each other good, rise above the negativity, and just do good. Help each other out. Don't feed into the negative crap. And if you get caught up in some stuff and you're going through a rough time, bust out your airbrush. Just start practicing. Start creating some art. that's when you'll create some of your best work ever. I mean, I've got some paintings and stuff I did when I was going through crazy stuff, and some of that was like times where I stepped my art up, and you got all that energy and you just release it onto the canvas or shirt or whatever you want to paint. So times like this, where everybody's getting stressed out and crazy stuff going on, everybody's scared, just try to stay calm and rise above all that, avoid negativity, and just make some cool art. Practice and get better, and when times smooth out, you'll have new skills you can make money with, and you can create cool art for your friends or family, Christmas presents, whatever you want to do. So just, can't we all just get along? Just everybody just stay calm. Everybody will get through it. Things will smooth out eventually. Just be nice to each other. Paint some badass eagles. Until next time, practice, 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 and I'll be posting more videos soon. Hopefully some from the bike rally. So until next time, take it easy. And don't forget to subscribe. If you want to stay up to date with my new videos, hit the subscribe button. It'll really help me out. Thank you.